Hey, what's up? It's Nick and welcome to the World Awakes quest guide. Now, to start this quest you will need to have 140 combat level, and that is the only requirement that you need to complete this quest. Now, if you want to gain full completion of the rewards, you will need to have done the following few quests: Ritual of the Marjarrat, the Firemaker's Curse, Branches of Darkmeyer, the Void Stares Back, and the Chosen Commander. So a selection of high level quests there, and I believe that not everyone at 140 combat will have completed them. So this is good for both high and low level players, as the low level players can actually play it and the high level players can receive the full reward, which is actually quite substantial with a lot of XP to gain from this. Now, to start this quest you'll want to head over to Ardoin, and once at Ardoin take the east exit, head up north, and you'll see a fella at the temple entrance called Orlando. If you cannot find it, then look on the mini-map and it's just northeast of Ardoin. So once you've found Orlando, you will want to just go into conversation with him and he will go through a little bit of chat, but basically he wants you to open the door to the temple, and you just agree to help him and you open the temple. So once inside the temple door, there's some investigating to do around the room, and Orlando talks a bit about how the museum will enjoy his findings and what he can take back to them. So all you need to do is go around and investigate a couple of things around the room. So once you've investigated about 3 things within the room out of the 4, a door will appear and you'll be able to walk through the door and you'll come across a butterfly shaped statue, and Orlando will attempt to pick it up, which you can actually see on the screen right now. And after Orlando's tried to pick it up, he will then let you have a go, and when you actually try to, it will set off a couple of alarms for the ancient temple's alarm settings, I'm guessing, as this is actually the resting place of Guthix, so the alarms in place are just to protect him whilst he's sleeping. So once the next room makes itself available to you, you'll want to run in and there'll be a little chat with Orlando, and some temple guardians will actually spawn out of the walls due to the alarm settings that you've actually just set off, and they will accuse you of being a Mahjarrat because they don't want them in the temple. So they will attempt to attack you, even though neither you or Orlando are actually Mahjarrats. They still sense Mahjarrat in their presence, so they will fight you whether you tell them you're a Mahjarrat or not. And this is where you go into the first part of combat. Now, these are a little bit difficult. I actually died the first time, but I've cut that out. Dying on this quest isn't a problem whatsoever. You actually get spawned at Ardoin and your grave is just outside the door. So if you do die, that is not a problem. It's actually probably quicker to die than tab out or something like that, because you get spawned pretty much outside the door, and when you come back in you will be left off at your last sort of save point as such. Now, the method I'm going to suggest you do these 3 temple guardians is to lure them behind one of the pillars in the room and just attack them one by one. Try not to get hit by more than one, as if there's more than one specking you at the same time, you will pretty much die. There's no doubt about it. It's hard to eat faster than what they hit unless you're very lucky. So it might take you a couple of minutes to do it, as they don't take damage incredibly high, but they are quite weak if you're a high enough combat level. So just hide behind the pillars and continue to attack them when you can. After finishing, a shady figure will appear and he will claim to actually be Guthix, but in fact it's actually a Marjarrat called Slisky, and he's just messing with you at the moment. When he reveals his actual identity, he will talk to you a little bit about the part you are going to be playing and what Guthix has to do with you. But this is not exactly apparent as of yet, but he'll take you in a little cutscene. Feel free to just pause the video and read through what he has to say, as it is quite interesting. I read through all of the text the first time, or this time during the quest, and I'm just going to speed up the unimportant parts that you don't need to know. This is just a simple guide to complete the quest, so feel free to read it on your own. But at this point it's just a massive amount of text as well as some cutscenes to follow, so I'll start commentating again after the cutscene. So towards the end of that cutscene, you will actually have seen some of the God Wars generals leaving the God Wars dungeon, and they are actually on their way here, and they're arriving now. In fact, the God Wars generals arriving are Armadale, Saradomin, and Zamorak. No Bandos yet, but basically Zamorak and Saradomin carry on through the door, and Armadale is left to deal with you as such. All you want to do is talk to him a little bit, and then you will be into combat. He's very easy to kill. All you will want to do is stick on Soul Split if you have it. If not, just be careful not to die, as he will knock off thousands at a time if you're low enough defense. But he's very easy to kill. It should take you no longer than a minute or two, and then you want to just proceed on through the next door once he's left. Now, after killing Armadale and entering the next room, you'll be in a little cutscene of Zamorak and Saradomin discussing amongst themselves what to do, as there's a puzzle contraption in the middle of the room. They can't work out what to do with it, so they decide to leave and once you walk around and try it yourself, you'll be confronted yourself by the Guardians of Guthix, who have just teleported in, because all of the high level NPCs are being attracted at the moment because of the changes that are possibly happening to the world. So once you actually get into conversation with the Guardians of Guthix, you will just want to talk to them and select one of the options. It doesn't actually change the outcome of the quest, but it just sort of changes what they come back with, I guess, a little bit. In this quest I've just decided to always go along with supporting Guthix. So if it was what do you wish to do, it's defend Guthix or something along them lines. So if you stick to that, this guide will be the exact same as happening on your screen as well. And after they have a little chat with you, they'll decide that they will let you attempt to go through or in fact try the contraption. Now I'm just going to go into how you actually complete this puzzle. The idea of the puzzle is to roll a boulder from one of the four corners to the activated destination point. Now it will take in turns what corner the boulder can actually roll from, starting from the top right, going to the bottom right, then to the top left, to the bottom left lastly. Now the way you have to get the boulder to is the activated destination point. There's 4 dotted around the course, and you can see which one is actually activated because it's a little green dot covered up on one of the squares. Now the way you need to actually get the boulder to it is by rotating the paths so that the boulder can then travel along the path and roll comfortably into the destination point. Now there's a couple of obstacles throughout the course, and you need to use these so that it can actually pass correctly and get to the activated destination point. Now the blue turning paths, they will turn on an average about 5 seconds, but this isn't a problem because before each of the paths that change there is actually a holding gate so that you can time it. So when the boulder can comfortably pass through, you can actually click the gate and the boulder will roll through. Now the orange turning gates, they will only change when the boulder rolls through it. So once it's passed and it's got off of that particular square, it will then change and face the other direction. This is going to be key, especially for the last path, as it is the hardest one to work out. It was the hardest one for me to work out at the time. And you can also see there are sort of some, I don't know how to describe them. I'm going to just, not an escalator, but they're sort of like the paths that the ball will only go that direction. You can see there's 2 of them, one on the right hand side of the square and one sort of in the middle towards the left side. And they also have gates before them so that you can let the ball go across it at the appropriate time. Now I've got some print screens of the correct paths, and I'm going to also show you with maybe a red line to where the ball is going to be travelling from. You're just going to have to use your wits for other than the picture, because there are points where you're going to have to release the boulder, but I cannot do that for you, so good luck with that, and I'm just going to put the pictures up now. Now I do hope them pictures I put together, although as awful as they are, helped you a lot, as they're going to give you the exact path you need to take to get the boulder to the destination point. Doing that without a guide or anything probably took me about 20 minutes, probably. Actually that's a bit of an over exaggeration, maybe 10 minutes to work out exactly what to do and stuff like that, and then another 5 or so minutes to actually get past it. So it's not too difficult, but I hope them pictures do help somewhat. Go down a lift with the Guardians of Guthix, and you'll bump into a bunch of Temple Guardians once again. But this is not for combat this time, thankfully, as this many would be very awful. But you will bump into a sort of leader of the Temple Guardians, and he will go through some conversation with you, but he does recognise that you yourself as your character is somehow linked to Guthix in some way. Now, after a quite lengthy bit of conversation with Crest, the leader of the Temple Guardians, he will in fact ask you to touch the circular rounded, or the circular door at the end of the path, and you will somehow be in contact with Guthix, or you have to do some sort of question to make sure that you are able to become a Guthixian, Guthixarian, or something like that. A follower of Guthix, let's put it that way. What you're aiming for, you'll be able to see that there are 4 grades for your answers that you can give, and this is chaos, order, good, and evil. Now you need to get them all 4 of them, sorry, perfectly balanced by answering the questions. Now each answer will give you a different sort of grading, so if you choose a answer that's seen as good, you'll get a lot of on the good bar, but that's not necessarily a good thing. What you want to aim to do is get 1 bar up in 2 of the types of grades. So the way I did it was I just went through the answers a couple of times, failing, because that's not a problem. If you fail, it just makes you start again, and I found out the answers that would give me equal, good, and order. And what I did once I found out them was I answered 2 questions, good and order, perfect, so that I'd get up to the bar, and then I spent the next 2 questions doing similar thing, but doing it in chaos and evil. So this will take some trial and error, so you can find out the exact answer you want to look for, but there's not a massive amount of answers. There's maybe about 6 or 7 questions in total that you could possibly roll in the 4. So this should only take you a matter of minutes. So once you've managed to get past that little trial and error question section, you will then be faced with another dilemma, and that is the Guthix Guardians have realised that the other types of God followers are now getting close, and they're not so far behind you, so you're going to actually have to go into some sort of combat with them, and everyone's feeling pretty demotivated, and you'll just have to simply choose one of the 3 options 3 times, and they will all become magically motivated and ready to fight, which will then bring you on to the next sort of puzzle for this quest, which is selecting the formation for the fight. So on screen you'll be able to see the correct formation that you need. So it will be, for the duration of this video, I'm just going to call her Cheddar because I do not care for her pronunciation. So it's going to be Cheddar first, then Crest second, Death third, and the Fist of Guthix bug thing will be on the last slot. And that is the formation you need to pair up. If you want to know how I got that, is because you can check descriptions for each of the Guardians' type of combat style, or how they fare in combat against what enemy is possibly going to be coming down from the tunnel that it's been allocated to. So you just match them up basically. So it's like, there's going to be a slow fat monster coming down here. Cheddar is strong against slow fat people, and yeah, it's as simple as that. It takes a couple of seconds of your time if you wanted to work it out legitly, or you can just put in the answers that I've given you. Either way, it does not affect you at all. So after a little cutscene, you will then have the opportunity to go and help each of the Guardians. You've allocated the tunnels, and you have to start off with helping Cheddar. So you'll want to walk down the path that Cheddar's standing near, and you should be in the room with Bandos, General Graardor. Now if you didn't just see then, there's a bank which you can get out extra food, maybe a couple of prayer pots if you're low prayer, or you're going to definitely be using prayer, overload or extremes or supers depending what you have access to. And there's also 3 cauldrons which will allow you to restore your prayer to max, your health back up to max, and also power up your stats. Now I'd advise just clicking on through them. It literally takes a couple of seconds to replenish everything and boost your stats, although it's an invisible stat, so I'm not entirely sure how much it helps, but anything that says helps you may as well get. So on General Graardor, if you have access to it, use Soul Split and literally spam out abilities until he's dead. It's very simple and he doesn't hit a high at all. You should finish with him within a few seconds. Once doing so, you will want to leave and move on to the next person to help. So right now we're going to be moving on to Cress to help, and he will be facing Zorgmal, the Mahjarrat. Now he has a tiny little strategy behind fighting him. When you go in, you'll see that you won't actually be able to deal off any damage to him at first, and the way you in fact deal damage to him is there will be portals spawned around the room. You'll be able to see him right there. I didn't work it out for a couple of seconds, but what you need to do is drop the health of the portals till they die, and make sure there's no portals at all. Give it about 5 seconds and he will come out of his sort of charging state, and you'll be able to drop him down some health. He will then spawn 4 purple portals, which you just destroy in the exact same manner as the previous 2. Wait another 5 to 10 seconds and then you will be able to hit him some more. And then on his final stage there will be a portal spawning around the room, and it will be called a decayed portal. It will be a slightly different colour, but what you need to do is drop it down till it's dead, attack Zorgmal, and then when it spawns again, hit the decaying portal, attack Zorgmal again, and carry out that process till he is dead. and once you've finished with Zorgmal, you will just want to leave the fight and move on to the next person to help. Now I'm going to start clip back here, so if you feel you need to, restock, as you'll be fighting Mahjarrat next, although he's not as exactly the same as he is in the God Wars dungeon. So remember to re-heal up on all the cauldrons, make sure you got enough food and supplies, and you will want to head over to Death to help him out. I actually died on this section because I wasn't aware he has some abilities that will actually pretty much one hit you or kill you within at least 2 seconds. Basically what you want to look out for is if he says anything, just move, run to a different place that you're actually standing at, or he will drop you for a lot of health. So you just want to watch out for that. It'll actually happen on screen in a few moments. He'll shout something and actually charge at you, and I managed to get out of the way, luckily. And yeah, you just want to carry on killing him as any other monster, just spamming out abilities until he's dead. Once you've done that, you will want to move on and help the last and final set of guardians. So now we're on to the final fight of the 4. You will be fighting yet again another Mahjarrat. Now I don't even wish to try and pronounce the name of this Mahjarrat, I'll get it horribly wrong. So, and it doesn't actually really matter. Now this Mahjarrat, it has the ability to heal, quite rapidly in fact, by calling on the powers of Mahjarrat. The way you want to stop it from healing is using stun abilities. So the abilities that I suggest you have on is Destroy, for sure, and you'll also want an ability such as Backhand or Kick, which does the same thing to stop it from healing. There's a ability or a move she uses is she teleports behind you and whacks you on the floor. You can do nothing to protect this. It doesn't hurt a lot, and she will gain a little bit of life points. If you're high enough combat, you can actually manage to kill her without having to use stun abilities, but it's extremely difficult and not really, there's no point to doing it that way. It's just using Destroy, which is an absolute beast ability as it is. We'll just stop her from doing it and just spam out abilities until she's dead that way, and make sure you're using your stun abilities when she talks to say she's going to heal. Once you've killed her, you will then be done with that boss, and you can now leave the room. Now when you actually leave the room, you'll come back and the whole room will be in combat. What you want to do, you want to head over to Cress in the middle of the room and talk to him. He'll tell you that you need to make sure the wall is protected and that you let no one back to that door, the circular door that you did the questioners and trial and error question section. And Junior is there to also protect. You need to protect Junior at all costs. This section is very difficult if you're low combat, I'm assuming. I only just managed to do it and I did a couple of mistakes, so if you did a perfect run it should be quite simple for you, but other than that there's no real tips for it. The only tip I can think of that actually I assume it helped me was I attacked each monster in turn, so that they were all on me. They barely hit me, so that was good. It's not like my health was dropping, and they were actually off Juna and attacking me, because once the barriers are down, all of them will start attacking Juna, so you need to stop the barriers from dropping at all costs. You can also have the option to repair the barrier once it's been knocked down, but it does take quite a few hits from one of the combat styles to actually drop the barrier. This, I think you need to have it running for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not sure on the exact time, but the bar is up in the top left corner of your screen. So all I can suggest for here is keep hitting out abilities on all of them and just try your hardest to keep Juna alive. So actually, after completing the little challenge, you'll be put straight into a cutscene where Ziliana enters the room. She kills Cress, and then there is a lot more guardians from the other god races in the room, and they are all discussing the matter at hand, which is what shall happen to Guthix and who should awake him. Now, this is a little bit of an argument, and it is a very, very lengthy conversation, which I would advise to listen to, but if you're not interested at all, feel free to just skip through. And as far as the options are concerned, I chose to click Guthix, or to support Guthix in all of the questions asked me, as I mentioned earlier in the guide. But choosing the other paths, I don't believe changes the quest at all, other than maybe a couple of the chats. So feel free to test that out for yourselves, but if you want to stick on path with the guide, I just choose the one that supports Guthix. So once the very, very lengthy conversation is actually over, you will need to enter the room, as Guthix is calling you, and the room you will then be in, you will be actually being chased by Nex and Char at the same time. But it's nothing too difficult. What you need to do is just run down the path, and obviously don't purposely run into these massive fireballs, as you get hit quite a bit. As you'll see in a sec, I do actually get hit by one. But if you just spam some health, or some food in fact, sorry, you'll keep your health up high and you should make it. Now I said Nex was following you, and she shoots the ice chambers at you, but you shouldn't have any problems with that. It's a very short run and you can make past it very quickly. And at the bottom you will then be put into a cutscene where you'll be talking to Guthix. So what happens in that cutscene there is Guthix is actually attacked by Slisky with the Armadale, the staff of Armadale, but to Guthix this is known as one of the Elder Weapons, which are the only weapons powerful enough to actually kill gods. And I believe it is the way that Zamorak actually rose from being mortal to his god status. So what you want to do is head over to Guthix, as he'll be calling you, and he will just have a little chat, and you'll be sent off to another place, and it will actually be Guthix's homeworld. So once in Guthix's homeworld, he will tell you that he's brought you to a blip in his memory. So this is part of his memory as when he was younger, and this is just before his homeworld was actually destroyed. And you can see he's actually far younger than what he was back just before he was attacked. You can see he's younger and a lot smaller, in fact. This is a lot of background knowledge about Guthix. There's nothing to this. All you're going to do is follow the straight paths that follow round. You'll bump into Guthix. He will tell you a bit more about himself, or what happened here, and a bit more about why he decided to save Gielinor. I found this the most interesting part of the quest. It gave the most part of the storyline. So I strongly recommend that you actually read through this part of the quest, unless you really don't give a shit and you just want to skip past it. If that's the case, just spacebar through the chat, carry on running around. There's about 10 different stops you stop off and talk to Guthix at, and at the end he pretty much tells you that he's going to give you some of his power so that you can later on stop the gods from returning back to the world, because if you didn't already know, Guthix stopped gods from being able to come onto Gielinor in the God Wars, and that's how the God Wars ended. And that's why Guthix went to sleep in the cave, because he needs his power that stops the gods from actually accessing the world. So if you would like to read it, feel free to read it. If not, I'm just going to speed up the clip and I'll replay when I get to the end of this part. So once you actually return back to Gielinor, Guthix, you'll see he's greyed off. He's not the same colour as he was, so he's actually dead now. And the other main guardians, such as Nex, Juna, and some Mahjarrats, they will be confronting you about what happened with Guthix, and there will be a couple of questions you have to answer. Like I said before, I just went with the one that supported Guthix. None of these actually changed the outcome of what will happen, and once you finish the little chat, Saradomin should pop up. And we're back with talking to Sarah Domin. So I know you can tell throughout this whole quest there's a lot of text you've had to either read or skip through. This quest was mainly based around being able to explain some lore about the quest. That's why it's such I suppose you could say this is a very easy quest, and this is why it was open to such low level players with no skill requirements. Because Jagex wanted to get in as many people playing it, but I hope the next quest in this storyline is actually going to be a lot harder, and you will be able to find out a bit more of the storyline. So you'll be talking to Sarah Domin at this point, and he'll just be asking about what happened with you and Guthix, and you can just basically choose the option. There's a couple of questions he actually asks you about himself, but other than that, he will, after the conversation, he will just leave, and that is it. So after he leaves, you will want to then talk to Juna. So after talking to Sarah Domin and he's left, talk to Juna. You have a little conversation with some of the guardians of Guthix, and that should lead you on to completing the quest. As you can see right there, the quest complete interface, and that will, if you've got all the requirements that I mentioned at the beginning, you'll get some hefty XP lamps that you can spend on some skills. You'll also get a ring that has very high stats. It's 2.7 crit bonus in all 3 types of combat styles, and you'll get a cosmetic top called Juna's Gift, I believe. And that is the quest complete. Thumbs the video up if this helped you, and subscribe for more videos. I'll see you again soon. Thanks if you watched the whole thing, and I hope this helped.